I spent $35,000 on my family's trip to Europe. Then at the airport, my sister said, "I forgot your ticket." Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I can still remember the exact moment everything changed. I was standing at the airport with my family, my heart pounding in a way that didn't feel normal. We had spent months planning this trip, months saving every penny, booking every ticket, and dreaming about this moment for years. This wasn't just any trip. It was a $35,000 dream, a trip to Europe that we thought would be perfect. But in that second, before we even walked through security, something snapped. My sister's voice cut through the noise around us, quiet but sharp, like an echo in a room I couldn't escape. She said, "Alec, I forgot your ticket." Those words hung in the air like a storm about to break. I froze. My stomach sank. All of the laughter, the excitement, the months of planning, it was slipping away. I wanted to scream, but my voice felt stuck. Everything I had worked for, the sacrifice, the money, the excitement, was now balancing on a knife's edge. We'd just arrived at the airport. The sun was dipping low, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. My family moved around me, talking, laughing, carrying bags, completely unaware of the storm about to hit us. For a moment, I thought maybe she was joking, but the look on her face said otherwise. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone, checking something over and over. I could see her avoiding my eyes. Something inside me tightened. This wasn't just a forgotten piece of paper. This was the end of something we had worked so hard for. I felt a rush of emotions. Disbelief, panic, anger, and a deep sadness I couldn't explain. Before we even stepped through security, I was already picturing it all falling apart. My parents talking in low, worried tones. My sister crying quietly somewhere behind us. Me, feeling helpless. It was hard to breathe, and worse, I had no idea if we could fix it. This was supposed to be a dream trip, a family memory. Now it felt like a nightmare that had begun without warning. As I looked at the crowd of people rushing past, everyone seemed to have their own purpose, their own stories. But I felt like time had slowed down for me. I was frozen in this moment, wondering, how could something so small as forgetting a ticket destroy something so big? And then, something unexpected happened. My sister whispered something under her breath. I didn't catch it at first. It wasn't just her forgetting a ticket. It was something more. Something I couldn't yet understand. I remember walking away from the check-in counter, dragging my bag behind me as my mind raced. My parents followed quietly, speaking in hushed tones. My sister stayed close, her shoulders slumped. I couldn't stop thinking about everything we had sacrificed, the money we'd worked for, the jobs we'd stretched ourselves for. This trip was supposed to be a reward for years of hard work, and now it was slipping away. It felt like my entire life had been paused in that one moment. I could hear the voices of people around me, the sounds of suitcases rolling on the floor, announcements over the loudspeaker, but none of it mattered. My mind was consumed by one question: what just happened, and how do we fix it before it's too late? The airport suddenly felt enormous and overwhelming. It wasn't just about missing a ticket anymore. It was about losing something we could never get back. My sister stayed close, her face pale, and I noticed she was biting her lip. She was clearly hiding something. I wanted to ask, but something told me not to. Something told me this wasn't just about a missing ticket. It was something far more complicated. We moved toward a quieter corner of the airport, my family's voices fading into murmurs. My mind was spinning. I tried to hold on to calm, to keep control of the situation, but it was lipping. My chest felt heavy, and I realized I hadn't taken a breath in minutes. My sister kept looking at her phone, typing something, and then deleting it. I felt the knot of tension tighten in my chest. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that single moment at the airport, was going to change everything for me, for my family. Not just our trip, but how I looked at trust, sacrifice, and what it means to really plan for something that matters. The question was no longer whether we would make it to Europe. The real question was, could we survive what was coming next? And that question was only the beginning. We stepped away from the check-in counter, the weight of her words still hanging between us like an unspoken threat. My parents spoke quietly, voices low and strained, as if afraid someone nearby would overhear. My sister walked just behind me, dragging her feet, her eyes fixed on the floor. I kept glancing back at her, but she wouldn't meet my gaze. It was strange. I'd never seen her act like this before. She was usually full of jokes and chatter, even in stressful situations, but now she was silent. The crowd in the airport felt different to me. Normally, I loved the noise, the buzz of people traveling, the excitement in the air. But that evening, everything felt tense and unreal. I could hear the announcements over the loudspeaker, but the words faded into nothing. All I could hear was my heartbeat and my own thoughts repeating the same question. What happened to our ticket? We found a quiet corner near a cafe. My parents sat down, their expressions tight with worry. My sister stood a few feet away, still staring at her phone. I wanted to speak, to break the silence, but something inside me told me to wait. I had this strange feeling, like I was about to uncover something bigger than a simple mistake. Finally, my mother spoke. "Alec, we're going to try to fix this. We'll talk to the airline." Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed fear. I could tell she was trying to hide her panic from me, but I wasn't fooled. She had the same look my father had when they got bad news before, the kind of look that comes when you know something might be impossible to fix. I asked my sister directly, "Why did you forget my ticket?" My voice cracked slightly. She looked at me then, finally. Her eyes were glossy, and her lips trembled. She swallowed hard. I thought I had it," she said softly. But it wasn't just that. I could hear it in her tone. Hesitation, guilt, and something else she wasn't saying. That silence hung heavy. The noise of the airport seemed to fade completely. I wanted to push her for answers, but the fear in her eyes told me there was something she wasn't ready to share. And at that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a forgotten ticket anymore. This was about something deeper, something I couldn't yet understand. My parents started calling the airline, explaining the situation. I stepped away a little, feeling a rush of conflicting emotions. Anger at my sister, sadness at the thought of losing our trip, confusion about why she seemed so scared. I leaned against a pillar, watching travelers pass. Everyone looked so calm. No one seemed to know the storm that was building in my own life. The minutes felt like hours. Every sound felt sharper. The rolling of suitcases, the distant laughter of a child, the clicking of heels on the marble floor. My sister finally came over to join me. Her face was pale, and I could see her hands shaking. She didn't speak for a while. Then, in a voice so low I could barely hear it, she said, Alec, there's something you need to know. I didn't just forget your ticket. My stomach dropped. My breath hitched. What do you mean? I asked, trying to steady myself. But deep down, I already knew this was no simple mistake. There was something much bigger at play. She looked down at her feet, twisting her fingers nervously. It's complicated, she whispered. But if we go through with this trip, things might not be the same again. Her words sent chills through me. My mind raced. What could she possibly mean? And why now, at this moment, when everything was so close to falling apart? I wanted to push her, to demand answers, but something stopped me. Instead, I just nodded slowly, trying to hold on to control. My parents were still arguing quietly with the airline, their faces tense and pale. I realized I didn't know what we were walking into anymore. What started as a dream trip was now becoming something I couldn't ignore, something that felt dangerous. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't let this end without knowing the truth. Whatever was behind my sister's silence, I had to find out. Because now, this wasn't just about a forgotten ticket. This was about uncovering something that could change everything for me, for my family, and maybe even for my life. As we waited at the counter, the line stretching ahead of us, I glanced at my sister one last time. Her eyes met mine briefly, and I saw something there I couldn't explain. Fear, regret, and a warning. And I knew we were not prepared for what was coming next. The line at the counter felt endless. Every minute stretched longer, the hum of the airport fading into a dull background noise. My thoughts were loud now, racing faster than I could control. My sister stayed silent beside me, her shoulders tense, her gaze fixed somewhere far away. I wanted to ask her again, but something in her expression told me she wasn't ready to speak yet. The airline agent finally looked up, her eyes tired but polite. "There's no record of your ticket," she said, her voice flat. I felt my stomach twist. I glanced at my sister, who flinched slightly. My parents tried to explain again, pulling out emails, boarding passes, proof of payment. But every explanation seemed to end in the same words. "We're sorry. There's nothing we can do." Panic began to seep in. This was more than frustration now. This was real fear. My parents exchanged worried glances, whispering urgently under their breath. I could feel the tension rising in my chest, like the air itself had grown heavier. Around us, travelers moved past, their faces indifferent. But for me, the world had narrowed into this small corner of the airport. My sister stepped away quietly, disappearing toward a small seating area. I followed her instinctively. She was curled up, her knees to her chest, and she didn't look up when I sat beside her. "What's going on?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "I can't. Not here," she whispered. Her voice trembled, and I realized she was holding back tears. There was something deeper happening, something she was terrified to say out loud. My mind started spinning with possibilities. Had she lost the ticket? Was there a scam? Or worse, was someone deliberately stopping us from leaving? The more I thought about it, the less it felt like coincidence. I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Alec," she said quietly, "I think someone doesn't want us to go." Her words were heavy, almost surreal. I stared at her, not sure if she meant it as a warning or if she was just scared, but the fear in her eyes told me she believed it. Suddenly my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Stop the trip. You don't know what you're getting into." My heart froze. I looked at my sister, but she avoided my gaze. The air felt colder, sharper. This wasn't just about a ticket anymore. This was about something no one in my family could explain. I went back to my parents at the counter, trying to keep my voice calm. "We got a message," I said quietly. They looked at me in confusion, but my sister stepped closer. "It's not safe," she said firmly. My father frowned. "What are you talking about?" But my sister only shook her head again. She looked like she was carrying a weight too heavy to speak. The airline agent's voice interrupted us. "We can try to rebook you, but it will take hours. There are no guarantees." That sentence felt like a verdict. I glanced at my sister. Her lips were pressed together, and her eyes were fixed somewhere beyond the walls of the airport. There was a silence between us. A silence filled with unspoken truths and mounting fear. We moved to a small waiting area near the gates. My parents sat down, exhausted and frustrated. My sister and I stood off to the side, away from the noise of the crowd. She finally spoke again, her voice barely audible. "There's a reason this happened. It's not an accident. I should have told you before, but I was scared." I froze. Her words hit me harder than any blow. "Told me what?" I asked. She shook her head, her hands trembling. "I can't. Not yet. But you need to trust me. If we get on that plane, things will change. Forever." That moment felt like a turning point. Everything I thought I knew about this trip, about my family, about my sister, it shifted. My mind raced, trying to understand what she meant. I wanted answers, but deep down I knew we weren't just facing a travel delay anymore. Something unseen was pulling us deeper into a story we didn't yet understand. And whatever it was already too late to turn back. The overhead announcements felt distant now, replaced by the pounding of my own heartbeat. My sister glanced at me again, her face pale and determined. "You have to decide," she said softly. "Are you coming with me? Or are you staying here?" Her words echoed in my mind, and I realized that this trip was no longer about Europe. It was about a choice that would change everything. And as I looked at her, I knew my answer would decide not just the trip, but everything that came after. We stood there, frozen in that waiting area, as the noise of the airport swelled around us. But somehow, it felt distant, almost unreal. My sister's words kept echoing in my mind, her question burning there. "Are you coming with me? Or are you staying here?" I wanted to ask what she meant, but I could see in her eyes that she wasn't going to explain. Not here, not now. Then, without warning, she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the gate. The urgency in her grip was electric, her pace quick and purposeful. I stumbled to keep up, heart pounding like a drumbeat. Around us, travelers passed by, oblivious to what was unfolding. But every step I took felt heavier, like I was walking deeper into something I couldn't escape. We reached the gate, and my sister stopped. Her breathing was sharp, her face pale, her eyes darting nervously around the crowded terminal. "We have to go, now," she said, her voice almost breaking. There was fear there, real fear. I searched her face, trying to read her mind, but before I could speak, a loud announcement blared over the speakers. "Attention all passengers. Flight 478 to Europe is now boarding. Last call." My stomach dropped. That was our flight. My parents were still stuck at the counter, still arguing with the airline staff. I glanced back at them, torn, This was supposed to be the happiest trip of our lives, a long-awaited dream. But now everything felt like a trap. My sister pulled me forward again, her grip tighter, almost desperate. You don't understand. If we go, it won't just be a trip. Something else will happen. Something we can't undo. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to turn back, to go to my parents, but my heart told me otherwise. I could feel the tension building inside me like a storm about to break. My sister glanced over her shoulder, her eyes wide with urgency. Alec, trust me. Please. That's when I noticed the man standing near the gate. He was watching us. His presence was unsettling, calm but intentional. Every instinct in me screamed to look away, but I couldn't. His gaze pinned me like a spotlight in the dark, and my sister noticed too. Her breath caught, and she pulled me closer. We don't have much time, she whispered. The line at the gate was thinning fast. My parents shouted my name, but their voices felt muffled, like they were underwater. I could barely hear them. My sister tugged me forward one last time, toward the plane. The boarding pass in my hand felt heavier than ever, as though it carried more than just permission to travel. It carried a choice, a point of no return. Just as we stepped forward, a voice called out from behind us. Stop! You're making a mistake. I froze. My sister's hand tightened around mine. We turned, and there was the man again. He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. They're watching you, he said quietly, almost a whisper. They know. Once you're on that plane, it's over. My chest tightened, and the noise around me seemed to fade completely. I looked at my sister. Her eyes were locked on mine, filled with desperation and fear. My mind raced, every possible scenario spinning faster and faster. The truth was, I had no idea what we were stepping into. But I knew one thing. Once we boarded that plane, there was no turning back. And in that moment, the world felt like it had shrunk to the space between her eyes and mine. A single choice stood before me. One decision that would change everything. The boarding call echoed again, louder this time. Final call for Flight 478 to Europe. My sister pulled me toward the plane. Her grip was fierce, unrelenting. My heart pounded in my chest. I glanced at my parents one last time, their voices breaking through the noise, calling my name. But I didn't look back. I stepped forward. We walked down the jet bridge together, silence between us heavy and charged. Every step echoed like a heartbeat. My sister's whisper followed me. This is it. No turning back. The cabin door loomed ahead, and I felt my breath catch. My stomach twisted. My entire body felt electric, as though I was standing on the edge of some thing I didn't fully understand. Something dangerous, something irreversible. I took another step, and then another. The door closed behind us. The hum of the airplane filled my ears as the door sealed shut behind us. The sudden vibration under my feet made my heart race even faster. I stared out the small oval window, watching the bright lights of the terminal fade into nothingness. Everything felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life without permission. My sister's hand was still in mine, tight, unrelenting. But now it felt like an anchor and a warning all at once. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mind was tangled in confusion, fear, and a strange kind of relief. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on me. My parents. They were shouting my name somewhere back in the terminal. But now, there was nothing but the low rumble of the engines and the soft murmur of passengers settling in. I I knew they wouldn't follow. They couldn't. This was something between my sister and me. Something I didn't fully understand yet. The flight attendants began their routine, but I barely noticed them. My thoughts kept circling back to what the man at the gate had said. "They're watching you." I couldn't shake it. Who was he talking about? And why had my sister pulled me away so desperately? Every instinct screamed that I should demand answers, but my sister's silence told me it wasn't the right time. Hours passed in a blur. The hum of the plane became a strange lullaby, and I found myself staring into the dark night outside the window. Somewhere deep inside, I felt something shifting. Fear was turning into resolve. Whatever awaited us on the other side of this trip, it was bigger than just missing a flight or a forgotten ticket. This was about something that would change our lives forever. When we finally landed, my sister didn't speak until we stepped off the plane. Anne. She looked at me with exhausted eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. "Alec, we're safe. For now. But this is just the beginning." And those words hit me harder than anything before. I realized then that this trip wasn't about sightseeing or family memories. It was about survival, and somehow I was now part of something I didn't choose, something I couldn't undo. We walked away from the gate in silence. The crowd moved around us without noticing the storm that had just passed between us. My sister kept glancing over her shoulder, and I followed her gaze. Somewhere in the crowd I felt it, a presence watching us, a reminder that we weren't free yet. That night, lying in a strange hotel room, I replayed every moment in my head. The laughter and excitement of planning the trip, the shock of my sister's words, the chaos at the airport, the man at the gate. They were all pieces of something much bigger, and I knew, without a doubt, that my life had changed forever. I thought about my parents, still waiting back there, unaware of what had really happened. I wondered if they would ever understand why I left. But deep down, I knew the truth wasn't something I could explain easily. Some things don't have explanations, only choices, and we had made ours. As I drifted to sleep, my mind kept returning to one question. How many times in life do we stand at the edge of a choice that changes everything? How many chances do we get to step forward or turn back? I don't have the answers. Not yet. But one thing is certain. I will never forget this night, this moment, this choice. Because some decisions aren't just about us. They are about the truth. And once you've seen it, you can never go back.